and I haven't seen you since 2019. I think that's correct.
Yeah, I think so.
And what's interesting, looking back, that was only 6 years ago, is what a completely different world we live in. So the last time I saw you, you had described, and correct me if I've messed up the details, I probably have, Greta Thunberg as, you weren't even that mean. You're like, she's clearly mentally ill, something like that.
Yeah, I said the left is exploiting this mentally ill Swedish child.
It's so obviously true. So if you said that now, that the only reason I'm bringing this up is just to celebrate how much this country has changed and how much freer it is. But so you said that in 2019, again, it wasn't the Middle Ages. We had air conditioning and air travel. It was like the modern era. And you were banned from the conservative TV channel, which denounced you as, quote, disgusting for saying that. Now, it's like you don't even think twice about noting the obvious. So I just want to say, I'm glad to see you in this better world.
Well, thank you, Tucker. It's good to be in this better world. And you heroically uncanceled me, actually. There were a few people who helped out, but you were one of the people who really helped out when I was being ostracized to St. Helena for making what I felt was a benign observation. Yes. And you said, that's ridiculous. And you kind of forced me back through into TV.
Well, I mean, it certainly didn't require heroism. It was just like, that was so stupid. I couldn't believe, I think it's also important to remember that this country went through a protracted moral panic that hurt so many people.
Yes.
And that we've never really repented of that, and we should. Like, I interviewed one yesterday. I won't even bore you with the story, but he was just another casualty of that 5-year period where people were destroyed, driven to suicide in a lot of cases during our cultural revolution. And the perpetrators were never punished for that. They never even apologized. They never even acknowledged. They were never forced to acknowledge their wrongdoing.
No.
And the people who called you disgusting for saying something was actually kind of compassionate.
That was my view. It was kind of charitable.
No, for real.
I strive for that. Yeah.
Why are we exploiting this child who's clearly unwell? She clearly is unwell.
Wielding children in politics generally is unseemly, I think.
Yes.
And when you're exploiting a truant in order to score some cheap point on the Sun Monster or something, I think is I think that's disgraceful, as a matter of fact.
But you're the criminal for pointing it out.
Right.
And the fact that my former employer played along with that and called you disgusting, I think that's the word they use, disgusting.
Yes, and I think, look, I'm not saying I'm Fabio, but I wouldn't call myself I don't know. But you mentioned this cultural revolution, and obviously you had all these ideological aspects. It seemed downright Maoist. And then it reached its apotheosis, 2020, 2021, with an actual political lockdown of our whole country.
Yes.
By all of these same cultural and political forces.
Oh, that's smart. I never thought of it that way.
And then the fog just lifted. Yes. It just, something broke. And now it seems like all of that, from the most ideological cultural level all the way down to just, being free to go out and like see Granny at Christmas.
Exactly.
It's over.
We should celebrate that.
We should. How should we celebrate, Tucker?
I don't know, but I don't think I appreciate the good things enough. I'm too focused on the sadness or things that are, not exactly the way I think they ought to be. And I don't think, speaking for myself, I take enough time to just be grateful for the good things. And that is one of the best things.
And I very practically want to celebrate. I came prepared today. I don't know if you're familiar with this product.
Yes, I am.
I said, I try to, mitigate all these little fun treats that I have, whether it's a donut, whether it's a tasty. But I said, well, if Tucker, I would hate to be inhospitable. So now I have a great excuse to celebrate with
you are always welcome to use an Alp here. It's been a year this month. I used the other product, Zin. I didn't even know that it was wrong. And it was one of those weird moments where you're sort of shocked into reality. Somebody told me, I think it's true, that the majority, like 70% of Zin users use the product rectally. And
that can't be.
Or somebody told me that. And I was like,
I believe
are you serious? And he's like, yes, you should try it. And I was like, I don't know what this is, but I'm out.
Yeah.
So we started this, which I think is a really good alternative.
That's good. I agree. Because it's got to be at least less than 10% of users. And no, I think it's 0%.
We actually don't allow it.
Yeah,
we don't allow it.
That's really good. No, but this actually ties in. The fact that we are living in an age now where you're allowed to have some nicotine again.
Oh, I know.
You remember you were allowed to have marijuana, fentanyl, you were anything in between. But the one thing you couldn't have was you couldn't have a cigar. You couldn't have a pouch. You couldn't have anything. And now it's just like
because it raises testosterone, whereas weed lowers it. So it makes you less obedient, more free thinking, happier, stronger. And those are all, the last qualities authoritarians want the population to have. So.
I was looking back because I was trying to figure out the morality of it. I've smoked cigars since I was 15. And I was trying to figure out the morality. Is this a vice? And I said, well, I don't think so. There's a story about St. Pius X. He was talking to a cardinal, called him in, offered him a cigar. The cardinal said, I don't have that vice. He says, it's not a vice. You would have it if it were a vice. You have enough vices. And then there was the case of St. Philip Neri, who won the devil's advocate in his canonization process, said that he might not be a saint because his body was corrupt. And because part of his nose had worn away. I said, no. It wasn't corrupted after he died. It was corrupted while he was alive from all the nasal snuff that he did.
Yes.
And Pope Leo XIII, the most prolific pope ever, wrote the most encyclicals, apparently drank cocaine wine, vin Mariani.
Is that true?
It is. I've never tried it.
Along with Sherlock Holmes, cocoa wine?
Cocoa wine, yes. Yeah, I'd probably have written more books had I tried it, but I haven't.
It's funny. Somebody told me a really interesting story recently about the number of cardinals, current Catholic cardinals who smoke cigarettes.
Yeah.
And I just love that. I'm not Catholic, but I have always loved cigarette smoking. I know you're not supposed to say that. I know it's bad. It killed a close relative of mine. I'm aware of the health effects. But I just thought, I don't know, there's something about that.
And because it's Benedict XVI loved to smoke cigarettes, and he would have one or two a day.
When was he Pope?
He was the Pope before Francis. So he was Pope.
Benedict, the one we just had.
Yeah, the
German Pope.
Yes. He would smoke a couple cigarettes a day. And I thought, this is something beautiful. This is another thing that's come back since our Cultural Revolution.
Wait, is that widely known?
I don't know. I'm sure they've tried to suppress that. They probably want to make him into like a kombucha drinking, hemp smoking person.
Yeah.
But no, he liked Marlboro Reds.
Good for him.
And he would smoke them. This is the chief political virtue. He would smoke them in moderation and with prudence. And this is the thing. We live in this crazy schizophrenic age where you have to be all one thing or all the exact opposite.
Exactly.
What does Aristotle tell us? It's virtue is that mean, right between the two extremes. You can have a Marlboro Red every once in a while.
Boy, if I could do that, I would still be doing it. I have a friend who's over 80 who smoked 2 Marlboro Lights, which men should not be smoking those, but whatever. Mm-hmm. The white ones, every day his whole life.
I think it was after Obergefell, they let men smoke Marlboro Lights. It was a little red part of that decision.
I was out by then. So speaking of gender bending, what do you make of the shooting in Minneapolis? Like, how should we think of, there's so many different threads there. I don't really understand.
Did you read the manifesto?
I did not.
The diaries. So I took a look.
I saw they were in Cyrillic script.
Yes, Cyrillic. My Cyrillic's not great, but we had some translations done, and you could read the writing on the magazines. And the first thing that struck me, after the horror of it, you just think the most vulnerable people of the church being attacked by this maniac. The first thing that struck me was how apparently incoherent it all was, because it's an attack on a Catholic church, on these like innocent little kids in a Catholic church. And then if you look on the guns and on the magazines, it's not just anti-Christian. It's anti-Muslim. It says remove kebab. It's anti-Jewish. 6 million wasn't enough. It's nihilistic. It's anti-gay. The guy was a tranny. And then there's the scariest part of it is on this page, there's a picture he drew of himself. And it's him looking in a mirror. And he's got the gun behind him. And in the mirror is a picture of a demon. And that's scary enough.
Like a goat-headed demon.
Like a goat-headed Baphomet-looking demon. When you translate the Cyrillic, the first thing that's written, top left of the page, is, who am I? And this is really jarring because you recognize that Moses at the burning bush, he asks God, who are you? Who will I tell them that you are? And God says, I am who I am. I am. Christ says, before Abraham was, I am. This is his declaration that he's God. I am, and a great priest friend of mine, Father Rutler, once observed that when you're with God, you know who you are. You know your identity. Modernity thinks that you have to leave God and just totally go and make yourself a God, and then you'll be truly yourself. You'll find yourself. That's not true. You become much more yourself, much more perfectly yourself, if you do what you're supposed to do and align yourself with God. And when you don't identify yourself with I am, then you're left with this pathetic question: who am I? So you see this obvious demonic influence there. And what struck me too, with all of these apparent contradictions, it's anti-Christian and also anti-Muslim and Jew. It's radically LGBT, but also kind of anti-gay. It's anti-Trump, kill Trump right now, but it's also has all these kind of far right-wing slogans. And it reminded me, which is very important to remember, especially in our line of work, because you're constantly reading all this radical stuff.
Right,
and you're on
looking
Twitter
for the easy explanation. Like, this is a representative of this group or this idea that I already dislike, and now you've confirmed that I have every reason to dislike this group. I mean, this is the effect of social media. But this guy, it's like, obviously I'm opposed to the tranny thing passionately, but
you realize that demons, which are real, they're not under every rock, but they're real. There is such a thing as spirits, and they'll try to get you from any angle. They'll try to get, if they think they're going to bang you from the right, they'll get you from the right. If they're going to get you from the left, they'll get you from up or down.
That's right.
All they want to do is devour you. It's like Lewis and the Screw Tape Letters. Just any tactic that will let them get a hold of you. And it's so clear with this guy because you realize this guy was being obsessed from every angle.
Wow. So did you know that before the current generation, chips and fries were cooked in natural fats like beef tallow? That's how things used to be done, and that's why people looked a little slimmer at the time and ate better than they do now. Well, Masa Chips is bringing that all back. They've created a tortilla chip that's not only delicious, it's made with just 3 simple ingredients. A, organic corn. B, sea salt. C, 100% grass-fed beef tallow. That's all that's in it. These are not your average chips. Masa Chips are crunchier, more flavorful, even sturdier. They don't break in your guacamole. And because of the quality ingredients, they are way more filling and nourishing, so you don't have to eat 4 bags of them. You can eat just a single bag, as I do. It's a totally different experience. It's light, it's clean, it's genuinely satisfying. I have a garage full, and I can tell you they're great. The lime flavor is particularly good. We have a hard time putting those down. So if you want to give it a try, go to Masa Chips, MASAchips.com/Tucker. Use the code Tucker for 25% off your first order. That's MasaChips.com/Tucker. Use the code Tucker for 25% off your first order. Prefer to shop in person? In October, Masa is going to be available at your local Sprouts supermarket. So stop by and pick up a bag before we eat them all. And we eat a lot. The fact that he drew a picture, and that is one of the few things I saw from the manifesto, pretty clear rendition too. I mean, he was a decent artist of himself looking in the mirror and a demon staring back at him. I mean, that seems like a page 1 story.
Yes.
This guy was possessed, or at least influenced by, in him was some supernatural force causing him to murder kids.
And think about the 2 opposing errors that have led to this just in the last quarter century. In the 2000s, I remember it vividly because I fell away from faith during this time. There was the new atheism, materialism, what God's a spaghetti monster. Come on, there's nothing but flesh and blood. We're just, synapses firing. It's a tale told by an idiot signifying nothing. That was one error. I think that's fallen away.
Yeah.
Then I
don't think anyone believes that anymore.
No, but now we've fallen into the opposing error, which is to say, actually, the material world has nothing to do with who you really are. Your body has nothing to do with who you really are. Your true self is this purely immaterial thing. So if you're a man, you can really be a woman or what have you. And those are opposing errors that oppose the real dignity of the human person, who is both spirit, soul, and body.
Once again, something I hadn't thought of. So interesting. Do you think that the fact that people live their lives digitally has allowed them to imagine that the body has no significance?
Precisely. And this is the point that I think a lot of people have not made, which is that, of course, the trans ideology is in many ways deader than disco at this point. The Democrats are running away from it.
Are they?
I think so. They're downplaying it. It really hurt them in 2024. I think they realized we reached peak sexual madness in 2023. They at least have to publicly back off. However, how did we get to that place? You could say, well, it begins with feminism. The idea that a woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle. Men and women are the same. Goes into the LGBT movement, which says men and women are the same. Goes into gay marriage, so-called, which says men and women are the same. So 2 men and 2 women are the same as a man and a woman. Leads into transgenderism, a man can be a woman. Okay, I see that through line. But just think about the technological aspect. If I live my life on this little portal to hell that's in my pocket.
It is a portal to hell.
All day long I'm sitting
exactly where it goes.
If that's where I live in my own perception, then my body really doesn't matter that much, does it? I'm not like the biggest, Achilles in the world, right? I'm not some hulking Adonis. I'm not an athlete, but it doesn't really matter. I just live in this virtual world. So is it so crazy to think that your body doesn't matter at that point?
I think that's, my instinct has been for the last few years that physical reality does really matter, even as I feel like I've had a heightened spiritual awareness and the dead certain knowledge that there is a spiritual, an unseen realm that is acting on us all the time, and that's as real as anything. I sincerely believe that. But on the other hand, I do see a lot of ignoring of the physical reality around us.
Yeah. This is why, by the way, like everyone's becoming Catholic now. You've noticed this strange phenomenon?
Yes.
I think this is a big reason why. The decline of religion has tapered off. Other denominations and traditions are growing, but Catholicism in particular is exploding. Why? I think it's because it's a sacramental theology.
Well, I never would have called that.
Isn't it? 20 years ago, could you imagine?
At all.
Certainly not.
No, the Spotlight series had just come out and you're just like, this church is too corrupt to continue.
Yeah.
And I just want to say again, I'm not Catholic, but I strongly agree that there's a revival, and I just see it all around me.
And I think this is why, the words at the sacrifice of the Mass are, this is my body, which will be given up for you, and which is mocked. The phrase hocus pocus, like in magic, is a mockery of hoc est enim corpus meum. This is my body. It's a kind of a hoc est corpus, hocus pocus is, at least that's a popular etymology, and I'm persuaded by it. So there's always this mockery in all of the kind of false religions. There's always this mockery of the real sacrifice. But in a lot of religious traditions, and I don't cast aspersions, I had a Baptist grandpa. The Knowleses come from Maine, actually. This is the ancestral homeland of the Knowleses.
Amazing.
Yes, yeah, I haven't made it up very often, but a lot of Puritan in the line. But a
lot of us had ancestors in Maine, and it's, they left. it's kind of
cold and barren. And
it is cold, yes.
But I think the reason why the sacramental theology is kicking up again is because we say, I've been living in a computer for 20 years and I don't even remember if I'm a man or a woman anymore. But maybe my body really has something to do with who I am. And actually, maybe this whole religion is about God becoming man and taking on flesh and dwelling among us and broiling fish. I mean, the first thing you see our Lord doing when he comes back, his resurrection,
standing on the shores of the lake,
he's cooking fish for his friends and eating
for
fish for breakfast, which is a hardcore. Do they do that in Maine?
It's hardcore. It's only in Japan do they do that.
In Maine it's lobster, but there
brook trout. Actually, people eat them with baked beans.
I think that's why. I think there's just and COVID ties into this too, because during COVID you were told your grandma has to die alone. And you can't see her. You can't go to Christmas. She has to die alone in a hospital bed. If you're lucky, you can say goodbye on Zoom. And people recoil against that because it's just contrary to human nature. Human beings we're like the angels in one way because we have reason, we have intellect and will, and spirits don't have bodies. But we're like the animals in another way. The animals don't have intellect and will; they have instinct and appetite, but they're bodies. And we're kind of in the middle of those two things. And you can't ignore you can only ignore the body for so long before people say, no, I'm a man, actually. Believe it or not, even in modernity, I'm a man and I want to do stuff.
What's a sacramental religion? How is that, or theology? How is that distinct? What's a non-sacramental theology?
It would be like the kind of religion that says that, the kind of religion Obama pushed. You remember Obama, he wouldn't talk about freedom of religion, not religion. He'd say, you have freedom of worship. You're free to, we're going to sue nuns. We're going to persecute Catholics. Biden's going to imprison pro-lifers for praying outside of abortion clinics. But you can have your worship in your own head. Close your eyes. You can think things in your own head, but you can't do anything. And that's not what religion is. Religion is, as St. Thomas Aquinas says, it's a habit of virtue that inclines the will to give to God what he deserves. And you do it in your whole life. And so A sacrament is the meeting of the material and the immaterial. The clearest example, the highest, blessed sacrament is the Eucharist, which we believe, and certain Protestant traditions also believe, is really Christ. Body, blood, soul, and divinity, really, really present. And this is confounding to modern man, who says, well, get me an electron microscope. I don't see, and actually there have been Eucharistic miracles where the appearance of the bread is not maintained and actually gives way to like cardiac tissue. That's a separate topic. Even in the ordinary sacrament, it's this meeting of the two things. When I go to confession, I confess my terrible sins. I get down on my knees in a box with a priest, and the priest is acting in the person of Christ. It comes from Scripture because Christ says to the apostles, you have the power to forgive sins. Whose sins you forgive are forgiven. Whose sins you retain are retained. That's a real authority.
He says that to the disciples.
Yes. And that's a real authority. I mean, it's not just a kind of abstract, you can just forgive sins by, spreading a message or something. No, he's saying you have an actual authority. You can retain sins if the person isn't really repentant. And that means that when I'm in there confessing in a box to a guy in a collar, God is actually forgiving my sins in the person of the priest, or not. But that's a meeting of something I can see and something I can't see.
One of the truest observations ever, it's hard to have a good time if you're stuck in bad boots. And that's why you need Tecovas. They make it easy for anybody, including people like us, hardly experts in boot fashion, to find the perfect boot. Here at TCN, we love Tecovas boots. Everybody's got them. You can find us wearing our favorite pair during the day or an evening out, not even line dancing, anywhere. Tecovas crafts quality Western boots for everybody. Generational ranchers, lifelong cowboys to first-time buyers. They handcraft their boots over 200 meticulous steps to create broken-in comfort the second you get them right out of the box. The difference is obvious when you put them on. It's unbelievable, actually. You never know that they were brand new. There's no compromise between quality and style. There's a reason Tecovas gets such high reviews from everybody. It's the total package. Get 10% off at tecovas.com/Tucker when you sign up for an email and text alert. That's 10% off at Tecovas, TECOVAS.com/Tucker. Honor the West by leaving your own boot print. Tecovas.com/Tucker.